Do you currently have 2 or more employees that are bickering and arguing and frankly getting on your nerves because they can't seem to get it together? Well, hi, I'm Barika from Simple Coaching, and I have been leading for over 15 years, and I've led way more than 18 teams. And I am here to help you with how to work through employees who just can't seem to get along. And I have definitely had my share of having to help employees navigate conflict and helping them learn how to get along with each other. As leaders, we have to be careful to ensure that we keep this under wraps, of course, because we're working with people, they won't always get along with each other. But if we allow negative conflict, and notice that I said negative conflict because all conflict is not negative. Conflict just means that people are not agreeing on something. And sometimes that's good because there can be positive conflict, and positive conflict is going to lead to positive outcomes. That means that we may have to rethink doing something, or the way that we have been approaching something else. Maybe it needs to change. So all conflict is not negative. However, negative conflict is that type of conflict that is going to lead to a toxic work environment, and we don't want to have that on our teams. As leaders, it is our responsibility to set the tone for our teams, to set the culture of our teams, and to decide and communicate how things are going to operate in the space that we are responsible for. So just keep that in mind. Now, here are a few reasons why we want to make sure that we are helping these employees get out of this ongoing bickering and conflict. You know how the sibling rivalries, right? We don't want that kind of thing happening at work. Sometimes people can do it and it's harmless, but then when it becomes where it's affecting other people, you can walk in the room and you can feel the thickness in the air of the negativity. And it's like, we don't want that. We don't want to deal with that. We want to make sure that our teams are as productive and effective as possible. And they can only be productive and effective if they have a way to get along with each other, because teams that like each other are going to be so much more productive and they're going to work so much harder than teams that don't like each other. And so we want to make sure that we have that positive work environment, right? The next thing is that is going to reduce employee turnover, because people don't want to go to work all the time and have to deal with conflict from somebody they really don't have to deal with it, if at all possible. You know, sometimes we have to grow and we have to mature, and sometimes we have to just learn how to be able to deal with difficult people. And if you want to know more about that, I definitely have some videos up. I will link one here right now. But when it comes to the workplace environment, it can get to the point where it can become something where it starts to have a negative impact on the person and their mental health and their mental well-being and even their physical health. And when it gets to that point, or even when it's approaching that point, then definitely if someone needs to change their work situation, their position, their department, whatever that is, then we want to make sure that they do that. But as leaders, we want to make sure that we don't allow that kind of environment to be created, because it is our responsibility. I want to say it again. It is our responsibility. If our team is walking into that environment, it is our responsibility. Now, the only exception to that is if we have upper level leadership and it's really stemming from upper level leadership, then that's going to be different, because when it comes to upper level leadership, we can't necessarily change the culture up there, but we can change the culture in our environment and say, you know what, we're going to do the best we can with what we have. So first of all, let's talk about strategies. We want to make sure that our teams are trained on how to give and receive feedback in a proper and professional way, because that is not something that happens accidentally. We actually have to teach them how to give feedback, how to receive feedback, and we need to teach them how to be able to give us feedback and how to receive feedback from us as well. And I can tell you the healthiest teams that I've ever run, they all were able to give and receive feedback, because that lets people know the little tweaks they need to make, the big tweaks they need to make, how they're being perceived by others, and they don't get into this thing where they think the whole world revolves around them and that everyone needs to bend to their whim, because that's not how the real world works. We are interdependent people, and the better we are at being interdependent and being able to work together with each other, then the better it actually is for everyone. It keeps us all really in balance. The next thing is that we want to mediate conflict in a fair way. Now, one of the things that I can definitely say about my personality type, and I know that this is not necessarily true about everyone's personality type, but I am very much able to see situations with a non-bias. So let's take it out of the workplace. Let's say I had a favorite, which I don't. I try not to have favorites, but let's say I had a favorite, right? So if I had a favorite and then my favorite did something wrong, I'm going to call them out, because I think that things should be fair. They should be fair, right? So whenever we're mediating these types of situations, we want to ensure that we are being fair, that one person doesn't feel like we favor them over another. And that's why I'm really big on not having favorites. I might have people that I'm like, man, that person's just awesome, and I might think the world of them. But at the end of the day, they will never know that I may have a preference for them over anyone else. I try not to do that. And even with anyone else, anybody can be in my good graces. That's just me personally. They can get in my good graces if they're doing the right things, come to work, have a good attitude, and do what you're getting paid to do, right? Next, we want to make sure that there are clear expectations and boundaries that are being set. This is a huge thing because when it comes to the workplace, sometimes people can get too familiar with each other, meaning that they don't know when they cross the line. So even when we're starting to see that someone is approaching the line or they're crossing the line, if we see them approaching the line, we may want to say something ahead of time. That could be different. I'm not talking about inappropriate stuff. That's a whole nother video for another time. Let's say it's a personal space issue. Someone may say, I don't like when people are super up close to me talking to me. That makes me feel uncomfortable. That can be something that's shared, or they can say voice that's just naturally loud. You just make sure that when you talk to me that you try to keep it a little bit lower than normal. That may be a little bit different for you. However, if that person has sensitive ears and that's why they're asking for it, that they're not being, I don't know if the word, it's not a prima donna, but they're not being very particular, meaning things have to be my way. That's not the environment that we want to create as leaders or to have for our teams. Also, of course, the more that our team members get to know each other and get to know that each of them are humans and see each other as human beings, then the better that they're actually going to like each other. So we want to make sure that we build in those team building activities. And basically, those are relationship building activities, okay? So, when you're thinking about team building, yes, we get to go out and do something fun together, or we get to go eat, or, if there's a team dinner that takes place, volunteering together or doing a fun activity together. Those things that help people build relationships, because I can tell you that those solid teams, I'm telling you the high-performing teams, I got another video on that, check that out. Those teams are the ones that like working with each other. And when I tell you, man, they can get to the point where they run themselves. And I'm talking about, if you've seen any of my other videos, I've led adults, I've led children, I've led teenagers, I've led all the gamuts of ages. I've led multicultural groups and stuff like that. So what I'm telling you, it works with the youngest kids. I did it with 8-year-olds. I did it with teenagers, and I did it with adults, okay? The more that they like working with each other, the better they will get to being at the point where they can, like my 8-year-olds, they couldn't run the whole classroom at the time by themselves. However, they knew what the routines were, and they got into the point where I didn't have to direct them. I had 5 different groups doing different things all at the same time based on a sound. So that's just an example with younger kids. Now, if you're working with older kids, that's a little bit different. You show them what you want them to do, talk to them about what you want them to do, and then let them do it and trust them to do it. And you talk to them if you see that they're not doing it. You need to always check, inspect, but don't micromanage. Anyway, that's a whole nother video. So now we're going to talk about my favorite strategy for how to help employees navigate conflict, but I want you to drop in the comments. Do you currently have employees that are not getting along? Also, what strategies have you used that have helped you with helping employees navigate conflict? Let me know in the comments. So now, one of my favorite strategies for helping employees navigate conflict is there are going to be 2 things I'm going to share with you. So the first one is going to be that, let's say they just had an argument and it's a he said, she said, blah, blah, blah. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to separate them. I'm going to hear the first one's story. I'm going to hear the second one's story. I'm going to put together what I have personally observed from both of these people and determine what most likely happened, okay? So that's basically how I decide on conflict and stuff like that. And if I feel like one may be wrong over the other, then I would talk to both of them. I talk to the one that did wrong, and I share what I observed with examples. I don't just pull things out of my hat. And also to the employee who may be in the right, then I'll just share with them, I understand, I see, and I've observed some things myself. And so I will make sure I have a conversation with this employee. Now, if both of them are wrong, then I will communicate to both of them that they're wrong. And most of the time I will do it separately in that conversation. Now, if it's something where I need them to come back together, I will pull them together in a room and we will have a conversation about the conflict, and we're going to hash it out, because I don't believe in having ongoing conflict, especially deep conflict, because that is going to cause problems. It's almost like having just a little bit of mold on your bread. You just leave it long enough, and that thing is going to be nasty and gross, right? So we don't want to have that in our teams. We don't want to have that festering nastiness on our teams. So the other thing that I like to do is, in that case, when I bring them back, now I'm going to find something for them to work together on, because at this point in time, they both realize I'm a human being, they're a human being. You know what? We're just human beings having an existence in this world, and we had a clash. And now the thing that's going to help them is a team building activity. I'm going to give you both a goal that you have to work on together. 9 times out of 10, that has worked for me. It's worked for them, and it's helped build the relationship so we don't have that ongoing bickering and fighting. So with that being said, if you want to learn more about how to improve your team's performance, I want you to watch this video next. And with that being said, make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things YouTube likes, and make sure you have a great day.